The second test that we're going to talk about today is the UCAT test. Now, this is a test that the majority of people take, as most schools actually use this test. So the UCAT test is a test that actually tests your mental ability, your attitudes, and how your professionalism is and what you think is needed to be a successful doctor. The test is mainly divided into 5 sections, all multiple choice questions. So the first section is the verbal reasoning. It tests your ability for you to analyze information, large quantity of text in a written form, and answer some questions on the text to see if you've actually already understood it. Also has a quantitative reasoning section, which is assessing your ability to analyze numerical data and do some mathematical problems. There's also an abstract reasoning section. It tests to see if you can see relationships between 2 patterns or 2 shape sets. The decision-making section, which is also known as a problem-solving section, where you get given a series of problems and you have to come to a conclusion as to what's going on. And then you have the situational judgment, which I like to think of it as the ethics and testing your ability to understand what's appropriate, inappropriate behavior in particular situations as a doctor. Now, registration for this test usually opens around May, and the test is usually taken around October. For EU members, prices are around £65 to £87. This depends on how early or how late you book the test. Usually the test has to be taken by October. Non-EU students, it costs usually £115. The advice I'll give for this test is preferably take the test before you send your application, so you know where you can apply to an appropriate medical school with your score, as if you send the application first and then you get your score afterwards and the score might not be as desirable, this might be a sticky situation. So universities that require the UCAT are a lot, so I'm going to quickly read through those. There's Aberdeen, Birmingham, Bristol, Cardiff, Dundee, East Anglia, Edinburgh, there's Exeter, Glasgow, Hull Medical School, there's Keele, King's College, Leicester, Liverpool, Manchester, University of Newcastle, Nottingham, Plymouth, Queen Mary, Queen's University, Southampton, St Andrews and Warwick. Now, certain universities that have been known to have a very high cut-off point are Newcastle University. King's also has a system where they invite people primarily based on the score. In Keele, applicants that score in the bottom 20% will not be invited for an interview. There are also certain universities that don't include Section 5, which is the situational judgment section. Now, great revision tools for the UCAT, once again, is the ISC medical book, Getting into Medical School, 1,1250 UCAT practice questions. This includes a couple mock exams. I've personally used this book, and this book is a very good starting point for you to get the hang of things and figure out what the questions are like. Usually the questions in this book are slightly harder compared to the actual questions in the test, but this is a good book nonetheless. Especially the maths questions are found to be a bit more wordy and take a bit longer compared to the ones in the actual test. Other resources you might want to move on to after you've actually used this book are the Medify UCAT online course. So Medify, you can sign up at various dates. So if you sign up for 2 weeks, it will cost you £35. If you sign up for 2 months, around £45. A year pass, it will cost you around £90. They have around 10,000 questions, 8 full mocks that you can actually see. You can actually try this for free to start off with before you actually buy this service. Another course that other people who maybe might have a little bit of extra cash in their pocket that they want to try is the Kaplan UCAT course. I've had a friend who's been to this and gave them some tips on how to undertake the test and how to be more successful. But definitely I would say Medify, at least after you finish the UCAT book, is probably something that you want to invest in. In addition to that, you can also brush up on your GCSE maths as well. So top tips for UCAT, I think you need to set yourself a target score average that you want to get in each section. For example, if you want to apply for a school like Newcastle, maybe you might think about setting a score of 650 to around 700. Once you go through the book, your weaknesses will become apparent, and you can maybe start off with the official website if you haven't got the book yet, so you know where your weaknesses are. And then once you've done a bit of practice, then you can start focusing on your actual weaknesses. It's important for you to prioritize these weaknesses smartly, as there's no point you doing loads of work on a section that you know you're good at. For example, if you know you're strong at maths, there is no point you doing the maths section over and over again to make yourself feel good when you're actually weak at the verbal reasoning section. You need to practice question types, especially let's say maths is weakest at the time zone change questions. Make sure you practice those more often if that's where your weaknesses are. So practice question types, not just sections alone. Remember, evaluate your progress, make a track of it, see how you're doing, see how it's changing over time. If it's plateaued, maybe it's time to try new routines, to try new things. Also, like I've said, try to learn strategies, Google online to find strategies. Maybe, for example, skim reading the verbal reasoning section, tackling easier questions first in the exam and then coming back to the harder ones. So find strategies that work for you. There's not one strategy that works for everyone. Finally, practice with online resources once you finish the book. Getting closer to the time of the test, I would advise definitely to do time mocks, so you're getting prepared to simulate how the actual test will be. Once you get there on the day, be confident. There's also a link I've included here, if you can see, which is a useful website that you can actually go on that has some some very good tips. It's about a person who has achieved a really high UCAT score, and it's a breakdown of how they actually did that, and I think might be very useful.